Hello, this is going to mark the first video on this channel, and I'm going to talk about my favorite music genre of all time being old school death metal. Now, a lot of people have complaints about old school death metal that I think are valid, that are like, it's so boring, there's no innovation happening. I believe there's a lot of innovation happening if you just look at some of it, and if you look at some of the more modern bands really pushing that sound to its limits and really giving it that fresh breath of air it's needed since the 90s, really. Because I will agree that in the 2000s, old school death metal kind of went stagnant, and we kind of made way for more brutal death metal bands, more technical death metal bands, more even blackened death metal bands like Behemoth, Belphegor, and just overall, old school death metal is a bit of a controversial pick for a favorite metal genre, but it is my favorite music genre of all time, and I'm going to tell you why in this video. Alright, so let me talk about my general talking points that I wanted to get in here, and then I want to tell you 10 picks for my recommended listings and albums that made me a really big fan of old school death metal, and I wouldn't be here without them today. So let's start with the complaints, I guess. A lot of people will say that old school death metal ran out of ideas by the 90s, which in a way it did. I talked in the intro about it a little bit, how we kind of made way for other bands to come through, bands like Obituary, Death, and maybe not Death so much, because they weren't really around in the 2000s much. I know Sound of Perseverance and all that, boo-hoo. But bands like Obituary, Deicide, Morbid Angel kind of were phoning it in. I mean, Deicide phoned it in by the mid-90s in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. But objectively, these bands were not putting out their best material anymore, and it felt like more newer bands like Devourment, the Black Dahlia Murder, In Flames, barely death metal in my opinion, sorry not sorry, Arch Enemy, and lots of just other bands were rising up, and death metal seemed to be going forgotten about. You know, we weren't talking about Suffocation, Convulse, Asphyx, or Nile anymore much, although Nile kind of did thrive in the 2000s in my opinion. I don't know why I said Nile, but I feel like we forgot about old school death metal, and I can't really say that there was much good OSDM coming out in the 2000s, and yeah. But I will say, by the late 2010s to this decade, the 2020s, I feel like OSDM has picked up its sound in the revival movement, although I don't like to call it the revival movement. And people still have complaints for the revival movement, saying, oh, they're just rehashing old things, blah, blah, blah. I can see where you're coming from, because a band like Chitalis, I hope I'm saying that right, this is their album cover on the screen, or I forgot it, they literally put in their Bandcamp description under that album as Demi-Lich worship. Probably not word for word what I just said, but yeah. And I see the complaints. Bands copying Autopsy, bands copying Cannibal Corpse, bands copying Morbid Angel, bands copying Deicide. I see the complaints, and I also kind of just groan when I hear band insert, we sound like Morbid Angel, we sound like Deicide for the 1000th time in a row. I see your complaints, but there are genuinely some bands pushing that envelope of old school death metal to the forefront. Bands like Tomb Mold are really killing it in the scene right now. And as much as I do not enjoy bands like Sanguisugabogg or what's that? 200 Stab Wounds, they are doing numbers for old school death metal that are bringing people to the sound. The reason I got into old school death metal was because I heard Sanguisugabogg, and it led me to Obituary and Deicide and all that. And I was like, okay, if metal gets this extreme, where else can it go? And I got into more underground things. These bands serve a purpose. The Maggot Stomps of the world, the 20 Bucks Spins of the world, they're serving a purpose, and they're getting people into true death metal. So I can't hate on them. I can't hate on Outer Heaven. I can't hate on 200 Stab Wounds as much as I would not like to listen to them often. Now, third and final talking point before I just start yapping about the albums I love. Why do I love this genre so much? To me, I'm picky with the sound of the music I like, because if I want to like do some schoolwork, if I want to do something around the house, I'm going to put on an old school death metal album because it has that drive and just heaviness, and just it moves me. But it also doesn't move me too much to the point where it either will just completely fly past my brain like a 40-second grindcore song. I love death grind though. I don't hate grindcore though. We will make a grindcore video eventually. And it won't like completely numb my brain like some black metal will do, and it won't make me stop in my tracks and just sit there with a brew in my hand going like doom metal will do. Love death doom, by the way. I think this genre sounds warm too. Like, wrap me up in a blanket, throw on some old school obituary, throw on some old school gourmet, throw on some incantation. I am going to be there for hours enjoying my time. And I guess in general, I find old school death metal to be the most collectible genre. Like, in my brain knowledge, I know the most OSDM out of anything, and I know just demos. I listen to rehearsals often. Like, I will listen to the things that like 14 people have listened to and not that popular. I get it. Like, that band Nirvana 2002, don't know anything about where that name came from, because it's kind of weird. I will admit, I will listen to just obscure stuff all the time, and it feels so niche and personal to me, and it just gives me good feelings, so I just gravitate to it often. Alright, the moment you've all been waiting for. You probably might have even skipped to this moment. 10 recommendations. Now, these aren't really albums that I would put in my top 10 OSDM albums of all time, maybe not even my top 10 death metal albums of all time, but they're albums that made me love this genre so much. We have our first modern pick, and I would say for anyone into like Sanguisugabogg, 200 Stab Wounds, or Outer Heaven, those style of the Maggot Stomps of the world, listen to Two Mold's Planetary Clairvoyance, because it has such a cool vibe. It has that sci-fi vibe. It's kind of dirty and just dingy, and it's really intriguing. My dog is outside my door. Let me see what he wants. Alright, we're back. This album just got me hooked from start to finish. There's like some synth work in here that makes me really happy, and I love listening to this thing. It's a classic, a modern classic. Now, this is for people who love doom metal. Ceremonium, Into the Autumn Shade. If you're primarily into doom metal like Electric Wizard, Black Sabbath, Candlemass, don't know what happened there, then I think you would love Ceremonium, because this band is overlooked in my opinion, and it's one of the few albums that I flock to often, and it's just like, if I had to make a top 10 doom metal album list, this makes the top 5. If I had to make a top 10 death doom album list, top 3, maybe even number 1. I'm honest, I'm gonna work on a death doom one, because it might be one of my other favorites. I just love the ones that everyone hates. But yeah, definitely listen to this. This one you've probably heard of. Suffocation, Effigy of the Forgotten. Some people will say, Suffocation's too different from Obituary. It can't be OSDM. Look, if you listen to like all of these albums back to back to back, and you listen to Suffocation, you don't see that much of a difference other than speed and technicality, because they weren't doing much. They were definitely an innovator in their genre and helped Slam. I hate Slam so much, but this is OSDM to me. I really don't care. So definitely listen to this if you want a more brutal, a gateway into brutal death metal, which we will make a list for that too. Number 6, God Macabre. No, this is number 7. I'm so sorry, I got sidetracked. God Macabre with The Winter Long. I don't have much notes for this. I just kind of wrote down, it's highly good. It's just so good. And honestly, if you just love riffs, if you want a good time, throw on this album, see what it does to you. You won't regret it. Now, the real number 6, Convulse, World Without God. This would make my top 10 OSDM albums. This is so good because it sounds snowy. It sounds primitive, raw, and it's one of the earliest albums in Finnish death metal. Finnish death metal is so underrated in my opinion. They're known for their black metal a little more, or maybe their heavy metal and power metal scene, but I think in general death metal that comes from Finland is just so good. So definitely listen to Convulse's World Without God. Number 5, Asphyx, The Rack. If you want Obituary, but a little bit more, like, mix Obituary, Chuck Schuldiner vocals, and, like, some more doomy or dirgy parts, listen to Asphyx, The Rack. You will not be disappointed. Number 4, Gourmet, The Ending Quest. This one is, like, sounds like 1,000 knives piercing your skin, and it's just, like, so evil sounding. And I don't want this album to end, but unfortunately it ends. I love this thing so much. 3, Cadaver, In Pains, a Norwegian OSDM band, which I don't see many people talking about. One of the biggest things about them is they use the upright bass. I'm a bassist. I play an Ibanez 5-string because I'm a little chud. But if you love just unique death metal, I can't say that the upright bass is the forefront of their sound really, but they do really make it well known because in like the booklet of this album, a guy's getting stabbed in the eye with the bass. It's so fun. Listen to this for just a good underrated OSDM album. Number 2 is an EP. Catacomb with In the Maze of Kadath. This album, EP actually, has a cool little build-up intro that's like symphonic and intriguing, and then it builds into like some just cavernous, just brutal sounding OSDM that's lo-fi in production but really just gritty and nasty, and I can't recommend it enough. It is 24 minutes of pure perfection. And number 1, Incantation, Mortal Throne of Nazarene, my favorite death metal band, my favorite OSDM album, my favorite extreme metal album is right here. I'm very biased towards it. I won't tell you otherwise. If you're new to OSDM, listen to all the other albums first, please, so you can understand Incantation, Mortal Throne a little better, because it's gritty, cavernous, it has some doom in there. I can't explain it too much because I don't want to spoil this album for you. I want you to hear it like I heard it. Definitely check out this album if you want just the most evil, grittiest, nasty, occult death metal you can find. Everyone's like, oh, deicide for the satanic death metal. They really peaked. If you want that vibe and you're edgy and you're 14, listen to Incantation. They're better. We love Incantation over here. They're my favorite death metal band ever. With that being said, thank you for watching this video. A lot of yapping going on here. Tell me if you want to see more. Tell me what genres you want to see, why I love them, and recommendations for. I want to do black metal, war metal, blackened thrash. I want to do death thrash. I want to do all of them. So keep them coming my way. I also want to do post metal and post rock and sludge metal. Thank you so much for your time. Bye bye and grindcore. Bye.